What we know about the influencer world on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and wherever is there are so many different ways to become a person of influence, to become the expert, to become the authority, that you don't have to follow any dickhead's shitty formula, right? You don't have to, you see that person that you don't like, you don't have to do it that way. You might not be as big as somebody you despise, one of these people, but you can find a following if you're genuine with yourself about, I think these steps and considerations that we've laid out in this discussion. Is there actually a tasteful way to be a guru? I'm Brett Venot.
And I'm Nathan Frazier.
And this is Mindset and Mastery.
Guru kind of has like a taint to it. Like you say somebody's a guru in something and you automatically think like, oh, they're a con artist, a snake oil salesman. Guru, it doesn't have the appeal that it used to have.
I totally agree. I kind of winced when I said it. And in fact, when I was reading this second secret in this chapter, Vitale in the book calls it use a God to lead them. Use a God to lead them. I didn't like the title. I didn't like a lot of what was said. But fortunately, for our purposes and our audience's purposes, I was able to, I think, extract a valuable lesson.
Yeah, and you and I both spent a lot of time as kind of leadership vocal people inside of like the libertarian community, building large audiences there. And we had the firsthand experience of watching what guru status can do to some people in that community. I've also seen it in internet marketing. I think there's this thing that, and I don't remember who first pointed it out. It might have been Stefan Molyneux, but this thing that happens when you don't have people that push back against you, when you don't have people that keep your ego in check, when you don't have people to tell you, no, that's a really bad idea. And I not to knock on anybody, but the guy who taught me about this or opened my eyes to this, I think fell victim to it as well. But yeah, this guru status, this appeal to authority kind of, in the School Sucks project, you did a lot of logical fallacy episodes, and appeal to authority was something that I want to explore on this. But also just the fact that people, as part of our nature, we have this thing where a lot of us are begging to be led. And over the last couple of years, the appeal to authority, it was on full display during the whole coronavirus pandemic issue. And I kind of wanted to talk about, when is it appropriate to trust the authority figures, trust the experts, and why it can be so scary to have this part of our human nature where we blindly trust the experts. And so there's a bunch of different ways we can go with this conversation.
Yeah, I think the appeal to authority is perfectly valid when the authority has been earned. So now we're thinking about authority in different terms than most of us encounter it in our lives. When we're children, we have authorities in school. I don't think those people earned any dominion over us. The parent-child relationship is a trickier one, obviously. There is definitely appeal to authority in higher education, where professors are basically doing this mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all routine. But their students and what their students turn in acts as their mirror. Like, can you repeat what I think back to me in exchange for good grades? That's something that I started hearing a lot about in the last, 10 years of School Sucks. And of course, our relationship with government, like you said, certainly over the last 2 years, where we saw a kind of authoritarianism burst out into the open, unlike anything we have seen in this country in our lifetimes. There are parallels, but it was pretty naked what we've endured since 2020. So typically, the appeal to authority is not a good thing because so much of our lives is spent dealing with unearned authority, arbitrary authority, authority that is backed up, by another fallacy called the appeal to force. Right. So you can listen to my authority, or we will carry out some use of force against you. That's either going to cost you time, money, or your physical freedom. So authority is a word that is really a double-edged sword, because I could feel really good about presenting myself as an authority on certain things. But the word authority itself comes with all of this baggage because of what we've been through most of our lives with unearned authority.
Yeah, and for me, I am kind of an authority in my niche in sales and marketing and copywriting. And I use that if I have a client that won't work with me, that won't bow down to what I think is the right way to go. I usually just fire those clients. So I've definitely live into my authority figure persona when it comes to my professional life. But I definitely wouldn't be the person who authoritatively gives people medical advice or relationship advice. So your suggestion about is it earned authority, I think that that definitely plays a role into it. The other thing that I would say I've experienced is just the power of authority and celebrity. And when we were talking about use a God to lead them, when Joe Vitale is writing in this book about using a God to lead people, having a celebrity, having an authority, even somebody just in a lab coat that says, hey, I'm a doctor and 9 out of 10 doctors agree with me that you should do this. It has a huge impact, especially in marketing, to get people to do what you want them to do. If they see a TikTok influencer wearing a specific type of shoes, they want to go out and buy those shoes. If they hear a doctor talking to a pain point that they're experiencing and the doctor says 9 out of 10 doctors agree, they're more likely to go out and trust the expert, trust the doctor. So in marketing, it makes sense. And that's kind of the point of this secret in the book is in marketing, if you want people to take an action, and hopefully it's an action that they'll later rejoice in, use a celebrity, use an authority figure in the field that earns trust for your message, and then people are more likely to take your message serious, which does fall into the category of an appeal to authority. But I wanted to talk about the other hand of this. A lot of us critical thinkers, free thinkers, people that have a lot of value to offer to the world, because we realize this appeal to authority, because we cringe when we hear the word guru, a lot of us reject our own position as being an authority figure in a particular area. A lot of us think, well, I don't want to be the guru. I don't want to appeal to authority. I don't want to, or who am I? Why should I be worthy of leading these people? I hate leaders. Why would I want to be a leader? And so I kind of wanted to talk about the opposite of the appeal to authority, which leads into something I see very commonly when working with my clients, which is imposter syndrome, the total rejection of the idea of authority. And I don't think that either end of the spectrum is really healthy to be on.
Totally. Yeah. I think that the remedy for imposter syndrome is to get rid of the word guru. Now, the word is used in this chapter of the book talking about this secret. Vitale talks about this guy who's called the service guru, or he named himself the service guru, and basically raised his status to a kind of religious archetype. I forget what industry it was, but like a religious figure in this industry. And yes, that is today. I mean, Vitale is reporting to us these lessons from Bruce Barton in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. Some things have gotten worn out, and we've had to rethink how to approach certain presentations. So if we swap out the word guru and we use a term that our friend Landon Porter came up with, genius zone. And the genius zone is essentially the intersection of what you love to do, what you're good at doing, and what people want you to do. Right. And then when you find that and you feel all three of those aspects, I think that's a pretty good way to push that automatic negative self talk, that quiet but persistent voice of why do you think you're entitled to this or whatever it says to stop you or stand in your way. That's kind of pushed out by saying, I love what I'm doing. People love what I'm doing. And I'm feeling really competent in what I'm doing. Right. Like all three of those things work against the imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And a lot of times the imposter syndrome prevents people from seeing their own worth. A lot of times we don't realize how valuable what we have to offer is to other people because we take everything that we know for granted. We're like, well, everybody knows that if you do this, then this is going to be the result. But the truth of the matter is the majority of the people that are interested in the thing that you have a pretty deep knowledge base about, they're 50, 60, 70 steps behind you, and not everybody knows. And by not stepping up and taking that leadership role because you either have a problem with leadership, which a lot of high achieving people do tend to have a problem with leadership, and they also don't want to be leaders. But by not stepping into that leader role, we're both robbing ourselves of our full potential in life, and we're robbing all of the people that we could help of that experience by saying, I don't want to be a guru. I don't want to be a leader. I'm not worthy of leading people. I don't like the idea of leadership. All of those people that are out there that need somebody to lead them, because even me, in certain areas of my life, I need people to take the lead. I need people that I can trust to tell me what the correct next steps are. Hopefully they've gone down that path. They know those steps, and they're not going to appeal to force. They're not going to tell me you have to do this or I'm going to throw you in a cage. But I do sometimes need people who are more experienced than me to take my hand and lead me to where I need to go. And if they have a problem, if they're hung up on imposter syndrome, if they're hung up on, I don't want to be seen as a guru, I don't like leadership, they're robbing me of the opportunity to get to where I need to go in life.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think that if you don't know what your genius zone is, you should make it a daily practice to start looking for it, to start narrowing down what I love to do, what I'm really competent at doing, and what people want me to do. In other words, what people will pay me to do. So, like, I'm really great at making puppets out of vegetables, and I really enjoy putting on puppet shows with my puppets made out of vegetables. But no one will pay me for it. And so it just remains this is a fictional example, since people out there are just getting to know me. But you could really have two of those things. Like, man, that is the best puppet made out of a vegetable I've ever seen, and I really enjoyed making it. And if nobody else cares, you got to keep looking. You got to keep looking. Really making sure that you're not doing stuff you hate, right? As Isaac Morehouse, the founder of Praxis, said, like, you have to start from ideally early in your career if you can, but this isn't in many of our minds early in our career. We have to start identifying the things we don't like to do and then trying to make the perfect job or role or entrepreneurial venture for ourselves out of that narrowing down, out of that process of elimination, until we're only doing the things we'd like to do, with, of course, the occasional technical inconvenience or phone call that lasts too long, whatever it is, that we're mostly operating inside that genius zone. One of those pillars, of course, being I really love what I do, but it takes time. It took me 15 years of being a professional adult to narrow it down to only really doing what I enjoy doing every day and getting paid for it. So it's a process.
Yeah. And I think the next step after that is, once you've narrowed it down, once you've found what your genius zone is, you have to be comfortable with presenting yourself, setting yourself up as an expert. You have to be comfortable with planting your flag on certain hills and saying, this is the hill that I'm going to defend. You have to be comfortable with letting people know, hey, I'm somebody who knows a lot about this. I could be the world's greatest copywriter, but if I'm not willing to tell people, if I'm not willing to present myself as an expert in copywriting and marketing, nobody's going to come to me for it. And so a lot of times, again, if we're not willing to, it almost sounds blasphemous to say, set yourself up as the god of copywriting or the god of helping people with self-directed autodidactic learning or the god of whatever. It just sounds a little bit blasphemous, but if you're not willing to set yourself up as the expert, if you're not willing to say, hey, I'm the leader, I'm one of the leading practitioners of this thing, if you're not willing to set yourself up as an expert, then it doesn't matter how good you are, because you're not going to be attracting the people that want to be led. And so that getting over that hurdle, getting over that it's not good to have leaders, it's not good to have blind faith in authority, getting over that hurdle and understanding if you have something valuable to offer the world, there are people who need you to lead them, and it's your responsibility to set yourself up as a trusted leader in that field for those people that you can actually help. Stop letting your insecurities rob you and the people that you could be helping of the experience that would be. And also for me, once I was finally ready to say, hey, I'm a good copywriter, I want to live my life as a high paid copywriter, I want to set myself up as an expert in this field. Once I did that, the work became a lot easier, attracting clients became a lot easier, and living in a flow state of my life. Once I found the area of life that I did feel like I should be an expert in, and I finally stepped into the role of expert, all of the other stuff in life started flowing, and fulfillment and happiness and all of that stuff came a lot easier. Frustration levels started to decrease, stress levels started to decrease, and you're in a genius zone. It feels like this is living the life that you're supposed to live. But until you're willing to set yourself up as an expert or say, hey, I'm planting my flag on this hill, it's just unattainable, in my opinion, until you're willing to get over that imposter syndrome and that rejection of guru status.
Perfectly said as far as I'm concerned. Just as we wrap this part up, I'm going to circle back to that imposter syndrome and negative self-talk that might be inside people's heads. And as you were talking, I was sitting here kind of tensely going, please don't say the word influencer. Please don't say the word thought leader. Please don't use those terms, because they're repulsive terms. And the reason why they become repulsive terms is because whenever a label is given to a group and then we hear that label, we often call to mind the most unlikable members of that group. You know, it's true in politics, it's true in sports, it's true in many places, right? So we hear influencer, thought leader, and these people just start popping into our mind and we go, gross. So what we know about the influencer world on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and wherever is there are so many different ways to become a person of influence, to become the expert, to become the authority, that you don't have to follow any dickhead's shitty formula. Right? You don't have to, you see that person that you don't like, you don't have to do it that way. You know, you might not be as big as somebody you despise, one of these people, but you can find a following if you're genuine with yourself about, you know, I think these steps and considerations that we've laid out in this discussion.
Mm-hmm. And also just part of any person that has any kind of positive impact in the world, anybody that does anything of any kind of importance, you're going to have people that are going to look at you and think, oh, gross. It's just part of the deal. It's part of the package.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've been harassed by people like this in the past. Me, you know, I'm such a sweet guy, but even me, you know, I've been harassed as like, you suck, Brett. So anyway, Yeah, this is I didn't like this one going in, but once I found the lesson, remember we talked in the first episode in this series about like this is really big picture stuff. Barton is a high-powered marketer and copywriter from a bygone era, working for huge corporate interests in many industries that are considered today corrupt and dirty, like cigarettes, oil, what am I forgetting? Steel, manufacturing, robber baron type stuff. And from that very big picture, from that very, very far away, scaled up story about US Steel or Andrew Carnegie or RJ Reynolds or whoever, Vitale is finding something to extract that we can apply to our individual lives. So I didn't think he was going to pull it off in lesson 2, but he did.
Absolutely. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. And if you want to follow along with the future episodes in this series, I definitely recommend checking out the book, The 7 Lost Secrets of Success by Joe Vitale. If you're able to pick out these lessons, there's a bunch of jewels mixed in with some of the stuff that you might object to, but I think it's the sign of a critical mind to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Awesome. So we will return soon with number 3 in this series, which has to do with storytelling.
All right. Until then, we will catch you later.
Catch you later.